is an accomplished clinical pharmacologist and a respected member of the Institutional Ethics Committee of Barashat Government Medical College and Hospital. He has authored more than 60 publications in peer-reviewed journals and has made significant contribution to clinical pharmacology, regulatory science, and ethical oversight in research. So, please welcome Professor Dr. Arunava Biswas. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, one and all. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to talk over here. As we are running behind our scheduled time, I will try to tell in a very short manner. Though this thing, what you can see over there, the NDCT 2019, New Drug Clinical Trial Rules of 2019, it's a big dossier. It is available in the public domain in the internet. You can download it. I think the organizer will be providing you the soft copy in PDF where why these rules have been created, what are the things that is there in the this book. I have shown a picture of this book which has been published. It's basically rules and regulations that have been given by the government of India, the regulatory authority, right? So why this requirement of NDCT 2019 was required in the year 2019? What was going on before that? Is as far as the trial of drugs is concerned in our country. So the concern over the clinical trial in 2010 and 2012, long way back. What the things would happen? There are many news in the media. I think it is very small written over there, but it is a trial related to the HPV vaccine. Now the vaccine is there present in the market. It is being used by now by the young girls. But during the study of the HPV vaccine, what happened was many things unethical happened as far as the consent of the trial participants. Young girls, school-age going girls, they have been recruited in 2 states in our country, Gujarat and Andhra Pradesh. Almost, as you can see, 25,000 girls have been recruited in this study, and there was not proper any informed consent has been taken. Many where the consent is taken by the hostel warden of the hostel where the girls have been staying in the school. So ultimately, what happened that 7 or something like that girl died during this trial. So there was a lot of hue and cry regarding this trial. Subsequently, some years later, then there was 2 Indian doctors, they're practicing, and they again did a trial which was illegal, unethical on tadalafil. As you all know, this drug has indication for erectile dysfunctioning, but is also being used in pulmonary hypertension. So there also, these 2 drugs, these 2 doctors have been penalized for conducting clinical trial in an unethical manner. Similarly, there were trial on the rotavirus vaccine. It has been funded by the NHS. It is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And again, during the recruitment of the young, participants, that means the pediatric group participants, there was recruitment which was not done in an ethical manner. Though this study was later on published in Lancet also, and but the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they has to face a lot of public kind of protest that why this kind of trial has been conducted, considering the human subjects as guinea pigs. So all these issues, that we've been talked in the parliament, and in the parliament they have to declare that within a span of 7 years of clinical trials, some 2,600 died, and this is the tip of the iceberg because there was probably more death, but this was what was reported to the government in the Supreme Court. So, regarding all these things, then the concern was regarding all these areas which are directly related to clinical trial. The ethics committee reviewed the informed consent of the subjects, compensation of the participants. Very few are being compensated, who have suffered from the trial injury. Compensation of accidental injury, review of the clinical application. So there were a lot of issues in all these areas while conducting those trials at that time, 2010 and 2015, 2016, like that. So ultimately, the government of India brought this gazetted notification in the March 2019 which is called the New Drug Clinical Trial Rules of 2019, right? And they have a lot of things. It is not possible for us to discuss in this short time, but let me just tell you that this new rules and guidelines is being applicable for these clinical trials, the bioequivalence studies or bioavailability studies and regulations of ethical committees who are being approving such trials. And the main objective beyond is to get a faster approval of these trials, to conduct an ethical conduct. Patient safety was one of the important aspect or concern while these guidelines have been created, and of course, a global harmonization could be established by maintaining or following these rules and guidelines of 2019, NDCT 2019, right? As you can see, there are 13 chapters. It has been mentioned 107 rules, 8 schedule, 27 forms, and they are all addressing all these areas, right, of which is under the NDCT 2019. There are ethics committees related. There are issues of compensation-related injuries. We have guidelines on the new definitions have been being put in this dossier. Academic trials, something new that has been they have brought, not new at that time, but academic trials. What is the academic trial? They have clearly mentioned it over there. Orphan drugs. They have mentioned post-trial access, something called post-trial access. So I will try to a little bit highlight regarding this. They have now clearly defined some definitions, like new chemical entities. What are these? They have defined the investigation new drugs. So new chemical entities like substance not approved as drug in any country, it should be called an NCE, right? Similarly, IND, the investigational new drugs. There was an old definition like a new chemical entity or product having therapeutic indications. And the new definitions in new chemical and biological entity. This has been later on incorporated in 2019 NDCT, and substance that has been not approved for marketing in any drug. So some new definitions have been brought. Regarding definition of new drug, when you call a drug new, they have again clearly stated this thing in their document, which you can go through it. It is available, as I said, in the public domain. So a drug is said to be new when its active ingredient or pharmaceutical drug has not been used in the country to any extent, and except in accordance with the provision of the Act and the rules made under as per conditions specified labeling thereof, and has not been approved as safe and efficacious. This is the definition of new drug. Again, a drug approved by the centralizing authority claiming to be proposed to be marketed with modified or new claims. So a drug has been approved for one claim. Now I am claiming that the same drug will be acting if will be applicable for a new claim. As for say this tadalafil, it has been approved for erectile dysfunctioning. Now I want to claim that this drug is also has its role to play in pulmonary atrial hypertension. So again, the same drug, when I am trying to establish a new indication, a modified indication, again I have to consider the same drug as a new drug, and I have to conduct clinical trial and establish that yes, an established drug being indication or for established indication has also its role to play in a new indication. So that is again called a new drug. A fixed dose combination also, in case of fixed dose combination, new drug definition is if in fixed dose combination we are using two drugs, two molecules combined, if both the molecule has separately been accepted or being approved by a government. If I combine the two drug and make a single tablet, then again I have to consider as a new drug, and again I have to do a clinical trial and establish that in combining both the drugs and making a one single tablet for a particular purpose is also has its own efficacy and safety profile. So I have to establish that thing also when I'm combining two known drugs and making it a single drug or more than maybe. Modified release and sustained release. So tablet in simple form. Later on, I decided to make it available in a sustained form or a modified release form. Again, it will be coming under the purview of new drug. So again, I have to do a clinical trial, establish that a known drug, which was a normal tablet, now I have been preparing in such a manner that it will be acting like a slow releasing tablet or a controlled release capsule. I have to consider the same molecule as a new drug. So this all comes under the purview of new drug, which has been clearly mentioned in NDCT 2019. Similar biologics, bioavailability and bioequivalence, they have been all being defined very clearly in this new document of 2019. And they have also clearly stated that new drug, when you're telling a drug to be new, how long it is new. Except those drugs that have been mentioned over there, novel drug delivery system, or a vaccine, or recombinant deoxynucleic acid, or living modified organism, monoclonal antibody, stem cell derived products, or gene therapy products, or xenografts. Exclusively, these are the drugs which never become old. They are always even new drugs. Apart from all this category of drugs, any drug that is coming as a new drug has been marketed. It remains as a new drug for the next 4 years. After 4 years, we can consider that drug no more as new. The tag new get removed. Only exceptional is all these drugs which always remain new, as it is being indicated in this new drug clinical trial of 2019. The new drug clinical trial 2019 have also clearly made the concept of orphan drugs. If you want to do a study with orphan drugs, you are considering it as orphan drug. How will you define it, whether it is an orphan drug or not? They have clearly stated that a drug intended to treat a condition which affecting not more than 5 lakhs in the population, in a person in India, can be considered as an orphan drug. So a rare disease, we are stating about the rare disease, again, they have clearly defined what is a rare disease, right? Less than equal to one patient by 2,500 patient. If one patient or less than that per 2,500 patient, then it could be considered a rare disease. And for such a situation, if I want to do a drug trial, then I will be exempted from many of the clinical trials phases. I can straightway jump. Rules of exemption of phase 3 and phase 4 is there, 1 and 2, phase 1 and phase 2, and clinically I can apply for the marketing licensing for the drugs because that drug has been considered as a rare or orphan drug. So there will be expedited review processes also. So these are the things which have been given special priority if I consider a drug as an orphan drug, right? According to this rule, they have also defined the clinical trials, and they have made one thing very important, that is the mandatory CTIRI registration. If I want to conduct a clinical trial right now, whether it is an academic trial, whether it's a sponsored trial, it is mandatory that investigator must register that trial in the clinical trial registry of India, CTRI. And nowadays, even if you want to publish such work, even in high index journals, they want to see whether the CTRI registration has been done or not. They really want the ethics committee approval. At the same time, they look into if the study is based on clinical trial, then these high index journals do require you have to produce the CTRI registration also for publication in such esteemed journals. As I said, the academic trial has been defined very clearly in the NDCT 2019. Everything remains same, only the red marks that I mentioned, that you are doing the trial not for seeking approval from the central licensing authority or regulatory authority of any country for marketing and commercial purpose. So right at this point of time, any of you present over here can conduct a clinical trial of any drug which is not for the purpose of marketing, which is solely for the purpose of academic interest, for the purpose of publication, then you can consider that trial as a clinical trial, academic clinical trial, and academic clinical trial is being exempted from many things, like you do not take the permission from the DCGI, the Drug Control General of India. You can take the permission from the local, your ethics committee, and you can conduct the trial, provided you have to very clearly mention in your protocol that I am doing this study not for any commercial or vested interest. I am doing solely this study for academic purpose. In that way, you can be exempted from the rigorous, approval process. I will just highlight what are the things that have brought change before 2019, all those unethical conduct of studies, and after 2019, what are the new rules that has been, what are the difference that has been brought. So grant for permission of conduct of clinical trial, a decision has been taken that 45 days for global clinical trial. If it is a global clinical trial, I have to give a permission of within 45 days. Similarly, condition for permission to conduct a clinical trial, a registered ethics committee, you have to take the approval from a registered ethics committee, then only you can conduct for clinical trial, go for the clinical trial. There are also independent ethics committee also. I will just have a slide on it. I will tell you later on. From there also you can take ethics. So there are IEC means two things. One is institutional ethics committee. It can be also be independent ethics committee. What is that? I will come to it later on. Validity of clinical trial permission. Once the ethics committee give you permission to conduct a clinical trial, you have 2 years time in your hand to initiate the study. If you don't, by any reason, if you don't try, start the study, and the time interval goes beyond 2 years, you have to seek new permission from the ethics committee. So these are the guidelines that has been mentioned over there. Rejection of clinical trial application, you may reapply. Your clinical trial, you have applied for approval, it has been rejected, you have every right for reapplication. So there are clear guidelines that have been mentioned, which has been recently amended in January 2026. They have mentioned that within 60 days for any investigational new drug and for a 45 days any active pharmaceutical ingredient, you can apply for the reapply for the approval of your clinical trial. Post-trial access, something which is being mentioned very clearly in the NDCT 2019, that is once the trial participants, the trial is terminated, whether the trial participants should get any kind of facility in the form of drug that has been provided to them during the trial, after the trial is over or not. Consider an anti-cancer study, right? So I have a new drug in my hand, which I am claiming that it will be acting very well as compared to the standard therapy for any particular cancer. But I know this trial is going to exist for 6 months. And if I find that during the study, one group, and most probably the trial group, the experimental group, performing very well, I know these cancer patients are responding very well as compared to the comparator arm. Now, what happens if the study get terminated after 6 months? Those patients who are being included in the study, they will then lose those drugs because those drugs is not marketed yet. So what will happen? তাহলে তারা সেই আবার নিজেদের পুরনো ট্রিটমেন্টে ফিরে যাবে না তারা সেই নতুন ট্রিটমেন্ট হবে they are getting benefit whether they should continue to some point. So there should be a clear cut post trial access which basically the sponsor had to declare that after the trial should I go for extra administration or delivering the extra drugs for some more period or not to the trial patient. Trial has been terminated, but still whether I could provide the facilitate the drug which is acting well or should I not, that has to be very clearly mentioned in the protocol. Enrollment of the trial participants quarterly have to report to the DCGI. The sponsor should report these things. Trial status have to be reported every 6 monthly. Condition of conduct of the clinical trial, termination of clinical trial has to be notified within 30 days. So once I have done a clinical trial in this institute, it is over. It is the responsibility of the sponsor to inform the regulatory authority that within 30 days of completion of the trial that we have completed this particular trial, which was being going on for the last 6 months, 1 year, or whatever it is, right? Serious adverse event, when the timeline, this has been very clearly being explained by Professor Obhijit Hazra sir in his presentation. I'm not going into it. Registration mandatory, as I said. If I want to initiate any clinical trial in this institute which doesn't have an ethics committee, immediately I have to apply for the registration. And there are two types of registration. For CDSO, for regulatory type of trial, I have to get a registration from the Department of Health Research for conducting bioequivalence or bioavailability study and academic trial. So any institute, they should have basically two ethics committee approval. যদি স্পন্সর ট্রায়াল করতে চাই তাহলে আমাকে সিডিএসইউ কাছ থেকে অ্যাপ্রুভাল নিতে হবে যদি আমি একাডেমিক ট্রায়ালের মধ্যে নিজেকে রেস্ট্রিক্ট করে রাখতে চাই if I want to do only BA studies then only getting approval from DHR is okay, right? So this has been clearly stated. Renewal of registration 90 days prior to end of our ethics committee যখন রেজিস্ট্রেশন ঘুরিয়ে আসবে তার 90 দিন আগে I have to again re-register for it. Constitution of Ethics Committee, minimum 7 members. These are being already being mentioned in the new trial rule. Proceedings, any change in membership of the Constitution has to be intimated in 13 working days to the Central Licensing Authority. And maintenance of record, every 5 years record, you have to mention, you have to maintain of any study record related records at the local site, local office. Minimum 5 years that has to be pended over there. There are other few things they have mentioned regarding this compensation related issues. There are the major changes that has been brought. One of the issue is free medical management. Trial going participant may have adverse effect. Because of the adverse effect, he or she might need hospitalization or need some extra medication apart from the trial medication that has been going on. Who is going to provide that? Again, this is the responsibility of the sponsor who is doing the trial. And if the trial participants suffer from any kind of illness during the ongoing study, then it is the responsibility of the sponsor to again bear that amount also for medical treatment for that particular trial subject or trial participant during that study period. Academic trials, I've already told that you do not need to take any approval from the regulatory authority. You can take the approval from the ethics committee in conducting it. Orphan drugs, I've also already explained. Coming to the independent ethics committee, basically independent ethics is not attached to any institute. Institutional ethics committee is attached to, say, like this institute, like medical college. It could be any other institution, but independent is independent, devoid of any attachment to the institute. In an institutional ethics committee, there are 50% of the members are intramural, 50% comes from the outside. But in an independent ethics committee, all comes from the outside. So an investigator himself or herself can initiate an ethics committee, independent ethics committee. But the rules and regulations remain same. An institutional ethics committee, whatever rules and regulations have been laid down by our regulatory authority, an independent ethics committee also follow the same things. Only difference is they are not attached to any institute. So such ethics committee can give approval. Suppose you are a private practitioner and you want to conduct a study in your chamber. Whom to approach? You can approach the ethics committee of this institute. You can approach an independent, if you know an independent ethics committee is there, who is within 50 kilometers within your chamber. Then as a physician, now you are as a potential principal investigator, you can approach with your study protocol to that independent ethics committee. You can place over there. And there are the same pattern of members are there also who will be now going into through your protocol, and they will be giving you the approval of conducting your clinical trial at your own clinic. So they are performing like that way, right? So clear guideline again have been stated in the NDCT 2019 regarding independent ethics committee. Similarly, they have given clear guidelines regarding CROs, the clinical research organizations. Earlier, what used to happen, the sponsor himself used to take the responsibility of conducting the trial. Now there are so many intricacies, so many things are there. Sponsor now designating this task to a third party called CROs. There are again people who are capable enough, they have expertise from all fields, they recruit people in conduct of clinical trial for a sponsor. Suppose Cipla want to conduct a trial on a respiratory drug, he will himself will not do the trial, he'll simply give that, a job to a CROs. There are so many CROs, as I mentioned over there, they are very popular, Syngene and Paraxil, they are very known, well-known CROs in India. They conduct clinical trial on behalf of the pharmaceutical industry. So they follow all the rules and guidelines that is being laid down by CDSCO, and they simply conduct the trial on behalf of sponsor, and they just give the report of the conduct of the trial. So they have to follow all the regulatory mandatory things. They cannot escape anything. And they also need to get registered with the government of India, and that registration remains valid for 5 years. So CROs are nowadays, they are taking up the major chunk of responsibility on conduct of clinical trial. As a physician in this institute, if you want to initiate any clinical trial at your medical ward or surgical ward, you don't want to do yourself. The sponsor may hire a CRO. You are the principal investigator. The CRO on behalf of you will help you to conduct that trial in this particular institute, collect the data, and then submit it where it is required. So these kind of things, they are now recruiting a lot of people for these things. Sometimes we need to accelerate the approval of new drugs, and definitely you can understand in situation like this where there is a life-threatening condition or there is an unmet need, definitely that drug is accelerated approval. Very recently, you all know the COVID vaccine that has been almost came into the market within a span of 1 year. Usually, a vaccine trial goes for years together to get permitted and approved and then marketed. But in case of this coronavirus infection, definitely it was an emergency, an exigency situation where this vaccine was developed in a very accelerated manner. Similarly, very unmet needs. HIV and AIDS CFA drug has been claimed to be curing that drug. If it is being claimed, then definitely I have to give accelerated permission, accelerated trial for the approval of such drug, so that as there is no drug which is better than right now, so any drug which is claiming that they can heal or kill such a disease, then this accelerated permission has to be given in such a special situation. Post-marketing surveillance, that is now mandatory. After the drug came into market, the job of the sponsor is not, that doesn't end over here. Even after the drug is there in the market, the physician and writing that particular drug in the prescription all over the world, all over the India, but still something called post-marketing surveillance has to be conducted in a specific manner, as it is mentioned. In the first 6 months, it has to be done every 6 months in the first 2 years, and then in the yearly manner for the next 2 years. So this has been again very clearly being stated in the NDCT 2019 after it's been came into into action. There is something called pre-submission meeting and post-submission meeting. This is all related to clinical trials, mainly submitted by the sponsors. Before submitting, a protocol for approval to the CDSCO, we can conduct a pre-submission meeting. We can seek approval and take the guidance. Similarly, we can also go for a post-submission. After I have submitted, I can go for an application and try to get a meeting with the for clarifying and different queries. So these pre and post submission issues have been now been clearly stated. And there are always surveys such this subject expert committee has been created for looking into the protocols of the different subjects. So just to accelerate the approval process from the government, so that you do not have to wait a pretty long time for the approval to come and you start your study. So all kind of subject experts have been now recruited depending on the type of protocol that is being received by them. Import of unapproved drugs, there are clear guidelines on that also. The medical officer, government officer can import or approve from the market or country of origin patients suffering from life-threatening disease or disease causing serious permanent disability. So how to import such drugs which is not available in India, and you want to conduct that study in India, then how to import such unapproved drug which is in this country. Clear guidelines have been stated in these new rules. Now, as I said, in the January 2026, some new amendments have been brought. After 2019 NDCT 2019, now some new amendments have come up, and how that has changed the scenario to some extent that I'd like to tell you. In cases of non-clinical manufacturing, the NDCT 2019 rule was formal CLA application permission was required, but now an online prior intimation is enough for immediate acknowledgement. So you want to conduct a trial which is non-clinical, just for experimental or academic. Earlier, you have to take a full permission, full process of permission from the central licensing authority. Now you can just intimate. Prior and intimation is required, and straightway you can go for, and you will get the acknowledgement, and straightway you can go for such experiment or manufacturing of such drugs. In conducting of BABA studies, initially CDSU approval was required. Now again, they are telling that you just prior intimation regarding the BABA study, and you can get an approval very faster for conducting the BABA studies. Review timeline has been now been cut down to almost 50%. Earlier, it was being stated that the licensing authority will take 90 days in giving their approval, which is cut down to 45 days. So again, a drastic step has been taken. As to make leveling rule, they have brought something changes, like manufacturer details was only required in 2019, but in 2026 amendment, they have told that you need to add the recipient's name, address, scientific name, manufacturer purpose. These are the things that has to be incorporated. As far as the form CT10, CT12, and CT13 is concerned, these are all the forms which need to fill up for procuring, investigation new drugs or active pharmaceutical ingredients. In order to procure this, permission application was only required. Now there is permission and prior intimation. This facility has been provided. As I said, we can appeal back for any rejection, which was 60 days for all kind of study. Now it has been 60 days and 45 days. They have split into these two things. And digital infrastructure, Sugam portal has been mentioned, madam, earlier that was the existing portal for application. Now this Sugam and NSWS portal has been also been introduced, so that the smooth is one single portal the investigator, the sponsor, everyone can access through for approval of draft, for application, submission, and all these things can be done for this. So ultimately, by this change which has been brought down in 2026 January, what has been finally we find that prior intimation has reduced the low risk studies, non-commercial manufacturing reformation has been done, reduced timelines, time-saving goals, and ultimately directly how that is influencing so far as the clinical trial is concerned. There is study startup efficacy has been increased. First to first inpatient development of cost optimization and global trial competitiveness has more increased that is being claimed by introducing these new amendments in the 2019 guidelines. So these advantages of new drug and clinical trial amendment has helped faster regulatory timelines, the same thing what I just mentioned, reduced review period, enhanced developmental speed, risk-based oversight, low-risk activities face proportional regulations, reduced administrative burden to a lot of to great extent, clear accountability framework, strengthening ethical oversight, and improve the investment climate to some extent. So this ultimately what they do is CDSU have taken a meaningful step towards what? Reduce redundancy, improve the operational efficacy, encouraging innovation and strengthening the oversight. So ultimately, these are the target that has been tried to be achieved. They are still on their way in achieving this, but something has brought a change in the attitude of practicing clinical trial in this country. So finally, I will round up with this impact, how that these changes have impacted so far the clinical research in India is concerned right now. Obviously, faster approval, simplification of documentation has been made more complex it was earlier. Improve the ethics and safety. Clearly, guidelines have been mentioned how the ethics committee members should, what they should do, what they should not do. This has been clearly being stated, and based on that, approval of drug has become much faster. When we need to go for an expedited approval, when we have to have a full house approval, everything has been cleared. Transparency and accountability is being maintained everywhere. So all those past dark days that has been gone through where the patient ultimately suffered a lot. Now, probably with all those checkpoints and all those new amendments, probably ultimately the end of the day, we want to see that the participants who are there in the clinical trial should not suffer a single bit. That has been taken care of to a great extent. So ultimately, what happens is this all boosts the innovation and ultimately a global alignment. More and more multinational companies will come to India to conduct the clinical trial if they found that this field of conduct of clinical trial is very clear, very transparent, and it is being always being governed by the government of India or the regulatory authority. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your well-crafted presentation and enlightening us. I am now going to facilitate Professor Dr. Arunava Biswas.